Welcome back to My Brainwise Coach Podcast. I'm Cole Bastian, one of your co-hosts, and we are so excited that you've joined us for segment 3 of the series we're calling, Are You Stuck? Are you in the midst of a life or career transition, or simply wanting to make a change? So far, we've talked about the transition map. We went through our Ikigai, or what that sweet spot is for each of us as individuals. And today we're going to take a deeper dive into some additional activities or exercises we can do as we go along planning the next transition of our life.
You did a great job at illustrating how our brains work. You may not have known you were doing it, but you were starting to talk about your marketplace, and it triggered off another strength you had. That's the way our brains work. So for our Brainwise listeners, if you're choosing to do this, some people worry about trying to compartmentalize and get it all correct and finished and done in one. That's not the way our brains work. Our brains jump around all over the place, go with the flow. It's a lot easier. Yeah. And that's why it's much easier to actually have it written down. In this case, we're recording it. And of all those things that we've talked about, so what's your community going to pay for? And when I say pay, I don't mean necessarily just in dollars or pounds, shillings, and pence. Oops, that's an old phraseology. Pounds and pence or something like that. But in terms of resource, are they going to give you their mental share of mind or whatever the currency is for what you are offering? Are they going to listen to you?
Yeah, I think in my church or personal community, the strategist part is probably the one, because that's one of my greatest strengths, I think. And then my desire to help people. And then they will certainly give me the time and the space to exercise those skills and those strengths. On the organizational side, from the point of making a financial income, companies are looking for great strategists, great connectors, great communicators, and great synthesizers.
Yeah. So, if we were planning your future, if we turn around and say, for Cole, you are in the field of L&D,
right?
But those characteristics you just described are not restricted to the field of L&D.
Right.
If we were talking about a longer-term career change, perhaps, then you turn around and say, okay, maybe I can do things differently. I had several long-term career changes. I was in IT for the first, 15, 16 years of my career. And I then changed to learning and development. And it's because it was a very similar set of characteristics that were required. Right. So again, if we're starting talking about long-term, talking about the characteristics, the attributes and things that you possess are not necessarily those that are going to say yes, and therefore you've got to stay where you are. I think there's a movie called The Knight's Tale. And I think at the very beginning, the peasant talks to his young son and says, a man may change his destiny. And so that's what we're talking about here, is what is you want your destiny to be. Okay.
Yeah. So I think recap, I'm just going to recap those questions for our Brainwise friends. 1, it's what do you love, or what are your strengths? 2 is what are your hobbies? I think that's my layman's terms or my interpretation, my strengths, my hobbies. The 3rd was, what does your community need from you? And then 4, what are they willing to pay for in terms of social capital, actual money, time, thinking time, whatever it might be.
And it's slightly bigger than hobbies. It's what are you good at?
Right. So your strength.
And so it's your strengths. So what do you love doing? What is your strengths? And for anybody who wants to, just go out on Google or use the AI model of your choice and just ask about Ikigai. And it will repeat most of these questions we've talked about.
Absolutely. All right. So Phil, let's go on to, after I've now identified, I know a bit about my purpose, I know where would you take me next? What would be the next one that we would talk about?
We do what I call the pictures exercise.
Okay, let's do it I'll be very imaginative. Good thing my brain thinks in that way. So we'll do that even without the pictures, but let's try that out.
Right. And so what it would be is let me tell you what I used to do. I would have a big box that was like 2 foot by a foot by 6 inches deep. And I would have I spent 10, 15 years, whatever, cutting out pictures from magazines and all sorts of things. And I'd finish up with probably 1,000 pictures in that box. And I'd give it to the person and say, I want you to go through these and pick them out sort of one by one, take a look at them and see whether they resonate about what it is that they describe about your future. And pick 25, 30, doesn't matter the exact number, but that's probably a good upper limit. And then once you've picked those 30 out, and it takes probably 20 minutes, something like that, I pull those pictures together and say one by one, what does it mean to you about the future? That picture, why did you select it? What resonated with you? And give me a description of where you want to integrate it into your future. And that's what we do. And then I'd listen back. And what I would do is I'd be listening for specific areas that are of importance to that person, but with a view to looking, what are the themes that come through? What are the things that they want? And they tend to identify it into actually 4 buckets. What do I want? What do I don't want? And what is it I want to do? And how do I want to show up? And those are the big 4 buckets that they would come under. And then I would listen to that, pull out the themes, reflect them back, and check and see how close I got.
Right.
Then I introduced a new piece of technology to the work, which was this little guy. And that is just record it. It was then easier because then I could actually send it to the person and say, hey, take your time. And why don't you listen to it and look for themes?
Right.
And what we can now do is more closely in real time, we can actually have AI listen to those things and come up with themes.
And now we have a folder on our computer with those 1,000 pictures.
We do. And it's almost like I've never done this as a dating app, but you could swipe left and swipe right. And when you come up with a picture that you like, just say, hey, this is what I want about it.
Right.
Imagine yourself with a few dozen pictures that you've selected.
I have probably, I don't know, I'll describe them for you as quickly as I can here. Yeah. I know there's a picture of there that I've selected that is a cross. And for those who listen, they know that I'm a Christian and a big part of my life is having the best impact I can for the kingdom and showing up in a way that I know would honor Christ's legacy. There's another picture of a family because I've always wanted to have a family. And so that's something that Joey and I are intently planning out. Just think of one of the pictures. I think of Michael Jackson, one of his videos where he had like a bunch of people that were all of different races and nationalities, ethnic origin, however you describe it. I see that picture. And the reason why it connects to my future is I want to be surrounded by people with different backgrounds, different cultures, different experiences, different beliefs. I want to have a very diverse future in terms of who I interact with. I know there's a picture in there somewhere of a nice little lake house or a beach house or something like that, because very much inclined to retire as soon as I can so that I can enjoy my retirement years with Joey. That's many years off in the making, but I'm manifesting it to come sooner. If I were to pick out another picture, there's probably, I know there's one in there. It's very similar to the diverse picture of human people, but it's this picture of people would probably have it would still be diversity and showing up in terms of how they might look, but you can tell that they're in need. And the reason for that is because I want to have an impact. I want to help others that are in need. I've always wanted to go on a couple of mission trips and help others build churches, schools, orphanages, whatever it might be. I have to be careful though, because I might want to bring everybody home with me because I just want to help people so much. Another picture is probably of somebody standing up on a stage. And the reason for that is I want to share my life story so that it might help other people resonate. And that can be in a lot of ways. It can be professionally and personally. Share what I've done personally, because I don't like to be a knowledge gatekeeper. I like to be able to share what I've learned and see if others might be able to experience it also or learn from it. And then the same thing on the personal side. There's a testimony that I've been given the blessing to have lived, even though some of it may have been challenging. And if it can help another person, then there's a compelling part of me that feels like I need to share it. The other part is a picture of me and like my husband and friends, or I can see like a couples group hanging out, having a good time, whatever it might be that they're doing. But I envision that for my future, that we have this really cool group of friends that we're able to do things with. And then there's probably several pictures of a couple that's either hiking or they're traveling somewhere or they're redoing something on their house, but it's these different collections of photos that describe a couple enjoying life and enjoying each other.
Great.
So that would be the summation.
So first of all, congratulations on your imagination. And for those of you who at this point are going, I could never do what Cole just did, that's probably at least half the population. So that's why we use some other tools like physical pictures or images on a computer and this, that, and the other. So that would be the first thing is we'd have you collect all that. We'd summarize it. I didn't make notes of what those themes were, but you've got a pretty good, rich, compelling picture. And we'd summarize that. And then I'd say to you, okay, if all these things happen, let's assume that you could magically make them all happen. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is it couldn't possibly be better, and 1 is I don't even want to think about it, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would it be?
Probably a 9. If I were able to accomplish all of those things, I'd be on a 9 or a 10.
So if it's a 9 or a 10, I would probably leave it at that point. But if it's anything lower, I'd say to the individual, what else would you add in that would move the needle up closer to 10? And that's actually when some of the non-conscious stuff tends to start coming out. When I really want to go and spend time with Aunt Mary because she's only going to be around for another 3 or 4 years. Oh, forgotten that. So there tends to be a little more detail-oriented. Those things might just nudge it up a slight bit. So that would be my next set of questions.
I think it's I think for our Brainwise friends, what we've done today is we've painted kind of a picture of the transition map. And if you feel stuck or you feel uncertain or you feel like you're in the wilderness, then this next series is certainly going to be for you because we painted a picture of this transition map of what it looks like to help yourself get unstuck or feel uncertain. And then we went through the Ikigai to identify where your sweet spot is. And then we also did your vision or pictures of the future activity, which you could probably go on ChatGPT, quite honestly, Phil, and say, give me 100 photos that might describe someone's future. And ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever will produce a bunch of photos for you to look at. Do what I just did, but using the actual pictures and describe why you selected them, because then that's what will give you your theme. And then stay tuned because we'll go to the next part on our next episode of My Brainwise Coach on now that we've identified those pieces, what happens next? So we're leaving a little cliffhanger for them, Phil.
And I want to just word of caution. With the way our brains work, there will be a number of people now have gone, oh yeah, but I could never do what he did. Or, oh yeah, but I could never achieve what, oh yeah, but. So our brains have this ability to do this yeah, but. And so if you find yourself doing that as one of our listeners, capture those yeah, but thoughts, because we'll come back and work with those in the future. Those are great fodder for a conversation, those yeah, but thoughts. So that's number 1 caution. Number 2 caution, there's a lot of people who will tend to be thinking, oh yeah, but that's going to be too big a change for me, and or it's not even feasible. So if you find yourself doing that, again, capture those moments. And to develop that sort of thinking that Cole just did, why do you think you'd have to change drastically? And what do you think the infeasibility would be for you? Because again, those could be powerful parts of our discussion moving forward.
Absolutely. And if you feel comfortable, send them to us at questions@mybrainwisecoach.com because we'd be happy to talk through it with you or share resources. And then if you're going along this journey with us and you do these exercises, put them in the comment section. And maybe if you feel comfortable, describe what you believe your Ikigai to be, or describe what you believe your future themes to be based off of. And it'll look different for you than it is for me, because we're all different people with different goals, dreams, aspirations, and desires. So with that, I think that kind of concludes our episode today, where are you feeling stuck, or are you feeling like you may be in a place of transition or change? And what do I do to be able to move forward? So we've given you your reflection, which is to think about what is your sweet spot following the Ikigai kind of methodology, and then what might you want your future to look like by going through the pictures activity or picture selection exercise. Take some moments, share with us what your findings are if you feel comfortable, because we'd love to hear from you. And as always, comment, share, and subscribe to our podcast. Leave us a review, send it to your friends and family so that they too can begin to understand their brains and make decisions that they might want to for their future. And with that, we'll talk to you next week. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and always stay brainwise.